Hi everyone! Today I'm showing you how to maximize the quality of your Milky Way photos shot on your mobile phone by using exposure stacking in Starry Landscape Stacker. Stacking is a technique that's been used by astronomers for decades. The colorful deep sky shots of nebulae and galaxies you see all the way from the Hubble Space Telescope to amateur astrophotographers use variations of this basic technique to get anywhere from several minutes to several weeks of light to achieve stunning images. By extending the light gathering time from a few seconds on a single exposure to a total of a few minutes over several exposures, we can achieve cleaner, more detailed composite images using small sensor cameras like on our mobile phones and point-and-shoot cameras, and actually even using slower lenses on large sensor cameras, which I've done. What this means for us is that with a little extra time and effort in shooting and post-processing, we can theoretically achieve much cleaner images with our mobile phones. So take note that to shoot the Milky Way, you need a phone that enables 30+ second exposures at ISO 3200, which, as of 2019, does not include all iPhones, no matter what app you use. You can use stacking in a manual camera app on the iPhone, but it will just take so much more time and effort that it's kind of not worth it. Anyway, if you want to learn how to get single exposures of the Milky Way using a mobile phone, head on over to my Shooting the Milky Way with a Mobile Phone tutorial linked in the description and in the card above. To begin with, we need to take somewhere between 5 and 12 consecutive exposures of the Milky Way or the night sky with exactly the same settings, including focus. Be sure to use the self-timer and not to accidentally nudge your phone when taking the shots because this will affect your alignment. More exposures means more data to get better images, but also more difficulty in aligning them perfectly. I'll show you the basic procedure here, but you'll have to experiment for yourself what number of exposures gives you the best result. I'll be using the formerly free dedicated Mac app Starry Landscape Stacker for this. If you use a PC, you can look into manual alignment using Photoshop or Deep Sky Stacker, which is free and Windows only. I've linked to a tutorial on manual alignment in Photoshop by Lonely Spec below with links to all of the software. Okay, onto the tutorial. So as you can see here, we have our 11 images that I shot back to back, all consecutively on my Asus Zenfone 3 Deluxe. And unlike in my previous tutorial, I can now shoot in RAW. So you can see it's actually a .dng. So this can give us much better results. So pay attention closely. So this is what it looks like. So it's amazing that a phone can get this image, but also it's really, of course, it's kind of dark and there's a lot of noise. And to be honest, I didn't nail the focus just because it's how hard it is to focus with a phone because it's just not very sensitive to the light. But anyway, we can still try to see if we can get a good result from this. So all these images have the same settings. This is actually wrong. They're all at 32 seconds, f2, ISO 3200. So the first thing I want to do is get a reasonably neutral white balance, which I've already done here. So I do that by just bumping up the saturation and contrast and trying to get a good balance between warm and cool and magenta and green. So something like that. It's not a big deal. It should just look reasonably neutral. Okay. And the next thing I want to do, as recommended by the makers of Starry Landscape Stacker, is just bring my contrast all the way down. Okay. So for shots from this phone, this is all I need to do. I'm going to select all and sync all of the settings. Okay, and we're ready to bring these into Starry Landscape Stacker. What I'm going to do is export. I'm going to choose an uncompressed TIFF, Photo RGB, 16 bits component, so just the full size, highest quality possible. Then I have a dedicated folder for stacking. I'm going to put them all here. And we'll wait for them to export. Now that they're exported, I'm going to switch over to Starry Landscape Stacker. Now when I open Starry Landscape Stacker and open the folder, which I already here, it's going to ask me to select the files to stack. So here I have my images. I'm just going to bring them all in. So it says here that not all the selected light frames, which are just the normal photos, have the same exposure settings. This is actually just an error in the metadata. They all have the same settings. So I'm just going to say, work with current images. So the beauty of Starry Landscape Stacker is it makes it much easier to be able to create a mask between your sky which has all the stars in the foreground. And the first step in this is painting these red dots where the stars are. Now, because it's showing me a composite image with the star trails, because this is like they composite the 11 images already, I'm just going to make it easier for myself and just pick one middle image. Okay, so what I need to do now is paint red dots where I see them in the sky to help the software create a mask, and at the same time paint out all the red dots in the foreground. So the better job I do here, the better a mask it will generate. But it is really this tedious. This is already pretty much the easiest way to do this compared to doing it manually in Photoshop. So just take the time to do this. Now I'm going to click here, erase red dots, and I'm going to erase all the red dots where there shouldn't be anything on the ground. Just erase it. Be sure to look closely if there's any pinpoint light sources in your frame, because those can really throw off the software. So okay, there's some more red dots to paint, but for now this will do. So we're going to ask it, based on these dots, to find the sky. So click on Find Sky. So as you can see, it's not perfect, but in any case, even if we had painted in more stars, we would still have to properly paint in the sky. So what I'm going to do now is just paint in the mask of the sky. So it's actually not bad because it didn't put any of the mask in the foreground. So by experience, there's some images where you need to be very exact, but an image like this where it's shot on a phone and there's not a whole lot of detail, you can afford to just be not super exact when painting in your mask. In any case, this is just a demo, so I won't take too much time to have a really exact mask. But the better you paint in your mask, the better the chances that you'll get a good result without any weird artifacting on the horizon. Just gonna do a little bit of refining there. Go back to painting the sky. So let's say that's good enough. I'm going to click Align With, and I'm going to choose one of the middle images like I have here, just to kind of like get an average. Okay, and I simply click Align and Composite. And now it's processing, and we'll see what we get. Okay, so at first glance, it's not particularly impressive, but you can already notice there's a dramatically reduced noise. Now, there's a number of options here, and I don't actually understand that well the technical ins and outs. So what I just do is I just look at each of them individually and choose which result I like best. For this one, I think I picked this mean minimum horizon noise. Okay, so again, as you can see, the noise is dramatically lowered, okay? Although it's not perfect, we do have quite a bit of star trailing in the corners, and we can correct this in the future maybe by trying to use fewer exposures. That will give us more noise, but might give us sharper corners. But for the purpose of posting on social media, this is actually plenty good enough for smartphone sizes. So we have this. I'm gonna click Save. I'm gonna put it in the same folder with this file name. Okay, so we're actually not yet done. What I want to do now is, so I actually already have a copy of this imported into Lightroom. It's exactly the same file. I followed exactly the same process. So this is the before. I'm going to reset because I already edited it. Okay, so we're not yet done, but already offhand we can see this is the stacked image, and this is the individual image. So the noise is just much, much, much lower than it was. But we're not yet done. What we can do now is we can bring back the contrast and paint in individual adjustments to just really make it pop for social media. So we can try this out. I'm going to use curves like that. Contrast a bit, bring down my highlights for the light pollution. I'm gonna straighten this horizon. Make a gradient mask just to get this foreground looking darker. Exposure. Just try to get a natural result. Don't go too crazy with it. Maybe paint in some clarity into the Milky Way, just to get this main and there you go. So this is more or less what I did. The edit I really took time on looked like this. It's a better crop, I think. And so overall, of course, it doesn't really compare that well to the A7R2, especially you have the star trailing here, but it's a much, much better result that gives you so much more data to work with much less noise. So again, comparing it to before, one image, and this is an image where if you edit it, it's really going to fall apart fast. See, if I turn up the contrast, like the noise, once I try to edit and make it brighter, looks awful. Whereas after editing this, it still looks relatively clean. It's not super sharp, but again, for Instagram purposes, this is plenty good. And that's it. If you'd like to see more astrophotography demos, you can check out the behind-the-scenes vlog of the all-night astrophotography adventure where I shot these images. I actually used a star tracker there for the first time, which for astro landscape can eliminate the need to use stacking altogether. And that's all for today. Please don't forget to hit like and subscribe if this was helpful to you, and to see more content related to astrophotography and photography and travel in general. Thank you for watching. Until next time.